Hey guys, this is Coach Michael Burt. I am so glad you joined me for Super Coach. I believe a good coach can change your life. I believe a good coach will have conversations with you don't want to have, make you do some things you don't want to do, help you become something you didn't think you could become. You see, you can't see the picture when you're inside the frame. You can't reach your own potential without the help of another person helping you break through those ceilings of success. I'm Coach Michael Burt, and I'm going to find the kryptonite in your life, and I'm going to do it on this show, Super Coach. Hey guys, Coach Michael Burt, the Super Coach, every single week, multiplying your life, multiplying your money, and multiplying your business. And one of my key principles of Super Coach is every single week I like spending time with talent. And man, there is a lot of talent out there in the world. Probably a month or so ago, through, I think, just YouTube, I was looking through interviews and questions and found this book called Never Split the Difference. And when I began to get into this, obviously we coach lots of real estate people, a lot of people who are negotiating at very high levels. I began to dig into videos. I began to learn more about Chris Voss, learned that he was the #1 lead hostage negotiator for the FBI. He's also written one of the top 5 or 6 books on negotiating in the world. And listen, what I really begin to understand that life is a negotiation. We are negotiating every single day for our time, for energy, for money, for our value. And man, I just thought, how do we have this guy on the show? And so I reached out to Chris's team, and thank goodness we are here today. So Chris, welcome to Super Coach, and thank you for being with me today, man. I've been looking forward to this interview. You've lived a fascinating life, #1, and not bad for a small town Midwestern guy, right?
Not bad. Not small town Iowa boy.
But I'm telling you, what you brought to life in this book, and I've got a lot of great questions to ask you. What you brought to life and brought an awareness from, to me, is how important negotiating is in the world. And people, I guess the worst negotiation to be in for a lot of people I coach is one you don't even know that you're in, right?
That's the most dangerous negotiation.
And so we're going to talk about your story. And one of the things I want to start off with, because we coach lots of people in very saturated markets, real estate being one of the biggest ones. They're negotiating every day. I actually see my real estate agent as a negotiator on my behalf. I'm negotiating every day for contracts. And one of the things you said in an interview, I think with Lewis House, I didn't catch it the first time, but I went back second and third time, and you were talking about Donald Trump and different things, and you had a statement that just floored me. You said, why spend money on something you can win with emotional satisfaction? Why spend money on something you can win with the emotional satisfaction? Will you start us off by speaking to what that means? Because, man, that was a good one.
Yeah, I'll use my dollars if I need to get something to get a term. But anywhere from 8 to 9 times out of 10, you don't need the dollars. You need something else. You need the other side. The other side has something more than the deal that they want. My idea is, I don't spend my dollars unless I have to. If it's 10% of the deal I can get without spending money. No deal is ever made strictly on dollars alone. It's the stuff around it that's going to make or break the deal. And some deals can be made without dollars at all. So, I'm greedy. I'm not making those deals with dollars when I can get it in other ways. And most of it's emotional satisfaction, as stupid as it sounds. The other side wants to know that you hurt them before they give in. They'll give in, but you have to let them know that you hurt them first. And I'm like, okay, that's easy. I know that there's some subtle things you got to do. It's a lot more than just saying, I hear you. That's nowhere near enough. It never is. But when you learn those tricks, they're hacks. They're good deals.
And so when you define negotiating, for the person that's out there watching this, because you've spent your lifetime negotiating, typically in high pressure situations, could be life or death, obviously. And and I really like the stories of you marrying or discussing the difference between hypothetical or theoretical and practical, and what you guys were doing at the FBI and what they were doing at the Harvard Business Schools. And right, because you're out there practicing. When you define negotiating, how do you define it?
Influencing the other side to an outcome that you want that's going to last for more than 2 seconds. You can know I'm influencing you directly. You might not know. Again, the most dangerous negotiation is the one you don't know you're in. which means if you think you're not in a negotiation, and I think we are in a negotiation, I've automatically got the upper hand.
Yes.
So, it's also a process whereby, and this is the difference between me and, what some people think of sales, although it's not fair to sales to think of it that way. If you knew what I was doing, you'd still be okay with it. And at some point in time, I'm not really hiding stuff from you. One of the things we talked about, kidnapping in the Philippines, the terrorist literally called the guy I was coaching after the kidnapping was over, where the hostage walked away. If the hostage walked away, what does that mean? That means the terrorists got nothing. They didn't kill anybody. They didn't get any money. They didn't get anything. They didn't even get any concessions from the government. Hostage walked away. Terrorist called the guy that I was coaching about 2 weeks later and said, "Have you been promoted?" And he said that in an admiring and in a respectful way. He knew that my guy out-negotiated him, and he called him to pay his respects. And by doing that, he's also saying, if when we meet again, I'll still talk to you. For some reason, I feel like we can talk, which is actually the way you should leave each and every person that you ever negotiate with. Not just the terrorists,
Right.
but everybody should feel like they deal with you again, no matter what the outcome was.
You also talk about the minute that the word win-win comes out, because I grew up of this concept with Covey, right? I was a deep disciple of Covey's from 18 to 25. He taught the 6 levels of interaction, win-win, win-lose, lose-win, right? Lose
Right.
or no deal. But, so a lot of people are taught that came from that school to come into every interaction and try to get a win-win. But you say that as soon as that person comes out of their mouth with, "Hey, I want to get a win-win here," or a win for you, you actually have a counterintuitive thing to that. What does that mean to you when you're negotiating?
Well, yeah, and this is what were the ideas originally because Covey articulated some great stuff for some classic wisdom that's still good to this day. And we don't always know how we're supposed to do it, but I don't know that I dispute any of his principles. So the win-win thing, what has that become morphed into? Why is that a problem? I have never had anybody in any interaction I've been in, if they bring up win-win early on, they're saying, "I'm not going to pay you anything. I win, and we'll see what you get out of it." 1,000% of the time, if the other side brings up win-win early, what they're trying to sell me on is taking no money. And they're trying to figure out how to sell me on that. And they know from practice that the earlier you say win-win to 2/3 of the people out there, the earlier the other side starts to drop their guard. And for me, my guard goes right up every time. And the same goes with the title of the book, Never Split the Difference. I've been into companies, and I'll have somebody come up to me at the cafeteria. Usually somebody who's not in the training, because they know the training's going on and they're a little leery of it. And I had one executive say to me, I split the difference all the time. I don't understand what kind of a problem you have with that. And I talked to them, and they fell into the category of, when someone says, "Be wary of someone who wants to meet you in the middle, they're often a poor judge of distance." Well, this is a guy that knows all they got to do is ask for twice as much as they want. And they're going to end up where they always wanted to be. Splitting the difference is a sham. It's a con. It's a fake. It's an emotional ploy on their part to get you to weaken and give in. So I see these as shark attacks. Somebody says win-win to me, it's a great white coming my way, and I better get my guard up.
What's interesting is I was in Miami Beach doing some promotional stuff with a guy named Grant Cardone on Monday. And Cardone's worth, 100 million plus, shrewd negotiator. His goal is to own $1 billion of real estate. He's at about 500 million. And the very first thing he told me to ask you was, why did he title the book Never Split the Difference? Yeah, that's interesting. That's good. All right. So when you get into this, you talk a lot about, there's a lot of things that I think are subtle that people don't think about. For example, cognitive bias. When you talk about cognitive bias or preconceived notion, when you move into negotiation, explain that to the viewers that are watching us today.
Well, based on a couple of different things. First one is, the first assumption almost everybody carries into a negotiation is, I am normal. And why wouldn't you think of yourself as normal? What's the shortcoming of that? shortcoming first is as soon as they start reacting differently than I do, what's that make them? Abnormal. They're the one with the problem. And we believe in a philosophy that there's three basic different default types to how we react to negotiation conflict. It comes from the caveman days, the part of our brain that's been there since prehistoric times. We see something in the jungle that startles us. We have a fight, flight, or make friends response. Those are the three types. When we're faced with a threat, we either want to fight it, we want to get away from it, we want to make friends with it. If you believe that proposition, and we believe we have the data to indicate that the world, regardless of gender and ethnicity, splits up pretty cleanly into thirds. And we've seen this with the Chinese, with Asians, with Latins, with Africans, with Western Europeans, across the board, because I've had the opportunity to teach people from every one of these countries. All right, so if you're going to buy that, the world splits evenly into thirds, then 2 out of 3 are not your type. So this proposition that you're reacting normally to 66% of the time is going to be wrong. But we instinctively, we don't understand it because we think our logic, our reactions, we think we're logical, we think we're reasonable. So these cognitive biases are buried in us, and we don't encounter them some of the time. We can encounter these type mismatch, cognitive bias mismatches 2/3 of the time. That's a lot.
Mm-hmm. Well, when I was working on one of my degrees, I had a course. Of course, I was 25, 26 years old. This was working at trying to.
That's been over 5 years now, right?
15 years. And I had a class, though, as I was working on my PhD on bias, assumption, and prejudgment. And at that time in my life, Chris, I just didn't understand. Like, why am I in this class? What does this have to do with leadership, right? And then I understood. Now I understand at 40 that every person brings their own, right, bias, assumption, and prejudgment to every scenario.
Yeah.
So, yes. So when you're negotiating with a person, like you said, they think they're normal. What they're asking for is normal. And I've noticed this with big time people. They in their mind that what they're asking for is fair. It's legitimate. In your mind, there's no way this is a win for you. And when you're sitting there looking at it.
Right.
And so one of the biggest things you talk about is a series of how questions. And I have actually been using this because I thought it was great when people ask you to do things outside the scope of a contract, when they ask you to do crazy things, when a person holding a person hostage says, I want you to have a car here in 30 minutes. And you start asking a series of how questions.
Right.
Explain that to people because this has been a big one for me. How do you expect me to do that? How do you think I can do that? I've already used this on a number of occasions, and it's been very helpful. So explain that one.
Yeah, well, it works about 3 strategies simultaneously. Number one is it's deferential. There's great power in deference. Okay. But with deference, you'd be amazed what you can get away with saying to anybody. And deference works for people at all levels. Our peers love deference from us because it makes them feel important. People who are above us in the pecking order love deference from us because it makes them feel important. They want to feel important. Mm-hmm. People that might be below us in the pecking order. How much do you love a boss who defers to you occasionally, or at least treats you with deference? You love that guy. You die for that guy. So this is a great universal strategy. It starts with this, with that. Second, secret to gaining the upper hand in negotiation is giving the other side the illusion of control. How questions make people feel in control. They don't realize that you just very, very stealthily framed the conversation with your how question. They feel in control. They don't know that you actually have the upper hand. And then finally, when you ask somebody how, it forces them to take a look at you. We refer to it as the term forced empathy. Actually, my son Brandon, who's my director of operations, how would you like to be the son of a hostage negotiator, right? You're going to learn to negotiate early. He was actually the one that said, this is forced empathy. This is the way that we make the other side take an honest look at us. Okay. So when you say to somebody, how am I supposed to do that? You make them stop and think and look at you and assess your situation. Even if they give you a negative response, the mere act of making them look at you, you've just gained an advantage. And so it's crazy powerful. It's our first way of saying no.
So let's put that into terms for a real estate agent. And so I know you're coaching a lot of agents now. I think it'd be a natural place for you to really dominate a space, people that are negotiating on other people's behalfs. I mean, I think you're really going to blow up in that area. So give some practical examples of when people are negotiating. How would you use the series of how questions?
All right, the real estate agents negotiations and tricky profession, because there's so many different types of hostage negotiations that you're in all the time. First one, commission negotiation. Potential seller, do you discount your commission? Other top agents in your area discounting the commission. Will you work on a discount? Your first answer is, how am I supposed to do that? Then what you do is you're using the how question to make what you need to be the path to what they want. They want superior services. How am I supposed to provide you with a full level of service if I discount my commission? How am I supposed to work for you night and day if you reduce my incentives? You then begin to change the structure. You begin to make them realize what they're asking you. If they're asking you to take a discount, they're asking you to take less incentives and work harder. How are you supposed to do that? But you can't say, what's the matter with you? Don't you see what you're asking me? Right. You use a well-designed how question to point them at something, and then they don't feel cornered because you asked the how question, but you're really focusing them to look at what a problem is, and in a very deferential manner. When they come up with an answer on their own, then they're good with it because they think they've thought of it. They don't realize that you pointed them at the answer. It's another term for it is often called guided discovery. Mm-hmm. And it also sinks in much faster with people. Guided discovery gets the message across faster than telling anybody anything. That's the other thing about the how questions. You actually get through the noise in their head much quicker because you're causing focus and attention to a specific area.
Is a how question, and you use why question as well, correct?
All right, now why questions are powerful stuff. We want to be real careful with it.
Okay.
So we use why creates defensiveness.
Okay.
Every time.
Mm-hmm.
There's no exception to that.
Mm-hmm.
And defensiveness normally breaks down rapport.
Okay.
How could someone use that to their advantage? You might say in a commission negotiation, they say, look, the top broker in their area is discounting their commission. Are you willing to take a discount? You say, wow, the top broker? Why would you ever do business with me? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, the defensiveness you want to trigger is them defending you. This is also something we call proof of life. In every negotiation, especially negotiations of this type, there's two people that are in the negotiation. There's the favorite and the fool. You're going to know which one you are. And proof of life tells you that. Okay. And really, if the top agent in the area is discounting their commission, if they're talking to you, they're only trying to drive the top agent down, and they're never going to go with you. You're the fool. If you don't know who the fool in the game is, it's you.
Yes. If
you're the favorite, they're going to react to the why question. Why would you ever do business with me? Why wouldn't you go with the top agent? Oh, well, you're this, you're that, you're this. The minute they begin to defend what you are, now you're the favorite. Now, if you're the favorite, you got no business cutting your commission. You're the favorite. They want you. That's why they're talking to you. So it's a diagnostic early on. Be careful with why. Understand the only defensiveness you want to trigger is defending you. And we typically use that in what we call proof of life.
And you talk about people's desire to correct people. So how would you use that in negotiating? Because people do love to correct people. How do you use that when you're negotiating? Because there are some examples I've seen of how you use it. Give us some examples there.
Well, we'll use it. People love to correct people. People also love to say no. Instead of saying to someone, "Are you in favor of this?" I'm going to say, "Are you against this? Is this a bad idea? Is it ridiculous? Are you completely against doing this?" And the answer is going to be, "Well, no, I'm not against it." Or if you say, "This is how I see things," and when you're not sure, this is testing, and they go, "No, that's not it. That's not it at all. This is what it is," because you get much more honest answers following the word no. People feel guarded. They don't feel cornered. They don't feel trapped. Getting somebody to say yes makes somebody feel trapped. They know it's a trap. They know you're leading them someplace. Whatever comes after the word yes, if you can get a yes at all, is always very guarded. What comes after no is not guarded at all. There was a commercial real estate negotiation one of my students was engaged in. Made no sense whatsoever. The building was being up for sale. So what he did was he triggered a correction from the broker. He said, well, the seller must be selling because they have a cash cow. There must be a disbelief on their part in future market fundamentals. Because why would you sell a cash cow? You think the market's going to crash. You don't believe in the fundamentals. So he said, it seems like the seller is selling the cash cow because they don't believe in the market fundamentals. The broker immediately shot back, no. The seller's got other buildings that are underwater. What? Talk about revealing a black swan.
Yes.
But the act of correcting made him feel powerful and in control, and they ended up revealing some closely held information that immediately changed everything about the transaction.
Okay, well, and that's a nice pivot and lead into what my next question is, because I think you sum it up real nice when you say it's about information gathering and behavior influencing, right? It's about information gathering. So how do you find what a lot of people in sales would call the hidden objection, right? How do you find what they're not telling you that's prohibiting them from moving forward?
Well, the first thing is you got to get out of this whole yes addiction stuff. Yes, closed-ended questions where the answer is a yes, which is referred to as mere agreement. It's referred to as momentum selling. It's also referred to by lawyers as cornering. Mm-hmm. Do you know anybody that likes to be cornered? I don't. People hate it. And what happens when you start trying to lead people down this yes path? Would you like to make more money? Would you like to have a nicer house? Whatever the yeses are. That's what creates hidden objections. Because now the other side, his guard is up, and they're afraid to trust you with any information because all you do is try to lead them down paths. So the first and most important thing you get out of it is stop asking yes questions. I mean, even asking someone, have I got that right? I know, and you know, I'm trying to get you to say yes. Mm-hmm. It's just, it's counterproductive. And it creates people covering up because they're afraid of you. They're afraid of being led down the path by you. The first thing you can do is get out of that. Ask more what and how questions. And then as you begin, as they feel deference from you, people don't hide stuff from someone who's showing them deference because they feel powerful. When they feel powerful, they talk, they open up. And then one of the great keys of even pivoting away from questions altogether, because the information gathering process, we've always been taught ask good questions. Why do we ask good questions? Because we need to gather information. Are questions the only way to gather information? Absolutely not. They're not even the best way. A simple observation. Give you an example. Again, realtor, open house. People are coming through the open house. They're looking, they're walking around, couple, they're taking note of this, they're taking note of that. Realtor's watching them the whole time. Realtor's got one of two choices when they get done walking around. Say, did you like the house? That's a yes trap. They're not giving you a good answer to that. Mm-hmm. A little bit better move is, what do you think? It's a what question. It's a little more open. All my clients say, we get some information from that. Not bad, but some. Well, the crazy thing they do is they say, seems like you really noticed a lot of stuff in the house. That's a label. Seems like. It's an observation, not a question. Mm-hmm. The realtor that first was telling me they were using this said, we call this opening the floodgates of truth telling. When they say, seems like you saw a lot here. They go, yes, we saw this, we saw that. We looked in the living room, we saw the kitchen, we want to change this. We're thinking about that. Floodgates. Again, information gathering, but not by asking a question, taking a different tact in because we know how the mind works.
Okay, so great. So basically there's a lot of phrases and key phrases that a lot of people don't know because we've been flooded with getting the yes, like you said, momentum selling, spin selling. There's all these things that as sales professionals have heard that you've actually tested and said, certain phrases, pivot a person, open a person up, not be guarded. So you talk about if there's negatives, to address the negatives up front. Okay, right? So there's a negative elephant in the room, there's something, and teach us how to do that. How do we address a negative that we know is a negative right up front to put the guard down?
And it's going to scare people, but here's why this works. And in today's day and age, thank God for neuroscience, because we can actually watch the brain work. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's get back to the caveman brain. The amygdala hijack, the stuff that's there no matter how many PhDs we had. Mm-hmm. 3 times the amount of space in the amygdala, in the caveman brain, is actually designed to enhance negative thoughts. 3 times the amount of space. Mm. And human beings' reactions show us that lost things 3 times as much as an equivalent gain, maybe sometimes as much as 9 times as much. And it has to do with the same dynamic. It has to do with negatives. Losses are negatives. There's data out there that shows us that 70% of the people who make the buy decision in order to avoid a loss, not to accomplish a gain. Again, this underlying theme is the negatives are there banging in people's brains. Because in the caveman days, we needed all this extra fear to keep us alive. We need to know not to reach for anything that looked like a snake because it might bite us and kill us. We need to know that saber-toothed tigers lurked inside dark caves, so we needed to be scared of all dark caves. We needed that to survive. Those days are gone, but that part of the brain is still there. What does this have to do with us today in business? You said it perfectly a moment ago. We know there's a negative. We feel it. That's our emotional intelligence kicking into gear for us. The problem is, in the past, we denied the negatives. I don't want you to feel. I don't want you to think. I don't want you to think that all real estate agents don't have your best interest at heart. I don't want you to think that real estate agents get together, they keep the seller and the buyer apart so they can get together and cut the deal as fast as possible with no regard for the buyer or the seller. I don't want you to think that. All right, so that's your instinct picking up with knowing what they're feeling. The 2 millimeter shift that makes all the difference in the world, instead of denying it, is observing it, making a label. I'm sure it seems like all real estate agents only care about dealing with each other, and their relationship with the other agent is more important than their relationship with you. That's going from denying it to using this tool we call the label, which calls out the negative. It just observes it. It's neither an admission nor denial. It's an observation. What difference does that make? Brain science has showed us clearly, as we monitor the electrical activity in the brain where the negatives go, that when you label a negative, the negative diminishes or disappears each and every time. It's 1,000% rule of the brain universe. So the only way you make these negatives go away is by a straight label. Plus, on top of that, the crazy thing also is you can inoculate from negatives, and you can even over-label negatives to keep them from recurring. How do you inoculate it? If I'm in the real estate business and I got bad news to deliver to a client, I say, I got something you don't want to hear. Instead of, I don't want you to react negatively to this, or even holding it back entirely. I got something you don't want to hear, or, a great thing to say is, I got heartbreaking news for you. You let that sink in. You let the caveman brain take over. They're going to imagine horrible things. And then you're going to say, the offer came in lower than what they expected. Your client is going to go like, whew, oh, wow, that wasn't bad.
Right.
That wasn't bad at all. Let's move forward. Let's see how we can deal with this. What you did was you overlabeled, and then whatever you say after that is actually relief. They love you for it.
Right.
Love you for it.
So would you advise a person to say, and I may be wrong in saying this, but if a person is more, so I'm clear and the viewers are clear, people are more motivated based on the brain by what they're going to lose and what they're going to gain, right?
Right.
Okay. So would you advise a person to say, hey, Chris, I know you, let's say you're looking at a property, you say you want to think about it, right? Sleep on it. I always joke around and say, sleep on it, pray about it, medicate about it, whatever. There's some kind of objection. And I'm putting it off to a decision in the future. Let me think about it, sleep on it. So would you say, how would you feel if I called you tomorrow and someone else has already purchased this property and you're not going to get it? Would you say that because of the loss that they could leave, or if you got to sleep on it, you may not sleep in it? Some kind of phraseology where they go, man, I don't want to lose this opportunity. We need to put an offer in right now.
All right, so there's a sequential issue here.
Okay.
And what you did was you're triggering something called prospect theory. You know, how would you feel if you lost this property? Mm-hmm. That's a good move. It's a nice how question. We need to use a little tactical empathy to put ourselves in a position to say this more effectively so that they don't feel too clobbered by this right off the bat.
Okay.
So I'm going to say, if they've got hesitation, I would say, it seems like you got some hesitations here. You know, seems like something's on your mind. Mm-hmm. Seems like something's holding you back here. One of the great things about sounding boards is as soon as people start talking stuff through, they often talk themselves forward. Okay. So by labeling like this, you need to get them to articulate what's going on in their brain, because when it goes on inside the brain, it bounces through the caveman aspect and the caves and all the things that are going in the caveman part of the brain. And negatives are always worse. And they diminish as soon as people start to articulate them. So you got to get them articulated. You got to get that stuff out of their head. So make sure you give them a chance to articulate all their reservations so they can hear it and see whether or not it makes sense. And once that stuff is out, then you say, how would you feel if another offer came in tomorrow and you lost this property? Now you're in a position for that how question you want to hit them square up with. You hit them square up in an emotionally intelligent way. And when you hit people, when you confront people with the truth in an emotionally intelligent way, you know what they call you? They call you a straight shooter.
Yes. Yeah, that's good.
That straight shooter is one of the all-time great titles that everybody should aspire to. It's somebody who tells the truth in an emotionally intelligent way.
That's good. And the Black Swan is uncovering a key piece of information. That's why you named your company that, right? Yeah. So everybody knows, because when I saw Black Swan, I was like, what does that mean? But that's really a part of it. You've uncovered something that is hinging the deal.
And there's always something there. I mean, the reason why there's always something there is both sides are hiding stuff in every instance. Mm-hmm. Every instance. I challenge anybody to tell me about a negotiation that they approached when they didn't have hidden cards approaching the table. Mm-hmm. I've never had anybody say, yeah, I negotiate all the time when I have no hidden cards. No, they say, I always have hidden cards. All right, so if that's true, so does the other side. If the other side is hiding stuff and you're hiding stuff, then we really don't know where the overlap is. And that's why there's always black swans. Always. They're always there.
Does the buyer or the seller have an advantage when it comes to negotiating, in your opinion?
The most emotionally intelligent person has the advantage.
Okay, so it doesn't matter if it's the buyer or the seller, because you hear a lot of people say the buyer has an advantage over the seller because the buyer has the resources and the capital to make the decision. But you're saying, and I like that, because you're saying the most emotionally intelligent, emotional quotient person has the intelligence, correct, or the advantage?
Who has the advantage in a kidnapping? I've kidnapped a member of your family. Who's got the advantage? Seriously.
I guess. I don't know. Based on what you're telling me, I mean, I think it depends on. I would think the kidnapper would have the advantage.
That's what you would think, of course. But just a moment ago, didn't you say the person with the money and the resources has the advantage? If I kidnap somebody from your family, you're the one with the money and the resources.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's good.
So, I mean, that's exactly. You know, leverage is in the eye of the beholder. Leverage is in the eye of you listening for the trigger points that drive the other side in ways they don't even know anymore. But they're there. You know why? Because they got a caveman brain. Everybody's got one.
Okay. So what I'm hearing, even after I read the book, watched all the interviews, is what keeps coming to my mind is the tremendous, and I want every person watching this and who watches it in the future to get this, the tremendous advantage that you can gain in a competitive world by understanding what Chris is teaching. Because, man, in a saturated and commoditized world where there's little room for error, where one person's trying, competing versus thousands of people, man, I'm just sitting here thinking, if I knew all this stuff, what an advantage I would have in a competitive market. I mean, is that safe to say?
Yeah, because all right, so let's take what you're discussing, a commoditized world.
Hmm.
There's no difference to the buyer between any of the sellers. So if there's no difference, how are they going to make up their mind? How they feel about it?
Yes.
It's going to be, their mind is going to be made up on emotional intelligence, EQ, empathy based. Do they like dealing with you? Did you do certain little things that made them think that you thought they were unique? Because in a commoditized world, then they feel like a commodity also. So then the advantage goes from, let's say you don't feel you have a value proposition in terms of what you're bringing to the table in sheer terms of a product. Then your value proposition is you. And that's when you distinguish yourself, because everybody else feels like a commodity. They don't lift a finger to distinguish themselves in ways. And now it's an open market. Now you've got an edge nobody has.
And you've combined, so basically, you've combined a lot of different theories into your personal philosophy, right? I can tell you've read certain things, you've studied certain people, and you kind of, all this practical experience of X number of years leading the hostage negotiating, you've come up with Chris Voss's philosophy on negotiating, which is in this book, Never Split the Difference, right?
Yeah, it is, yes.
Do you go into every single, like a songwriters tell me, because I'm in Nashville, and songwriters tell me that their brain never shuts off thinking about a song. I mean, do you go into every single interaction with another person with that negotiating mindset? Does it ever turn off?
Well, the negotiating mindset that I deal with is like, I want this to be a great deal for both of us. I mean, I want to discover a deal here with you that never occurred to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, for me, it's fun. It's interesting. It's a little bit, it's a curious adventure. The ability to create a deal here where afterwards you go like, wow, that was cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So then it's a lot of fun.
All right, so let's end on a couple questions because I don't want to keep you longer. You've been great. I love the book. We've been promoting it to everybody. I would like to get a group of people to come to one of your one-day workshops. I think it would be very valuable. Obviously, at some point, we'd love to get you to Nashville, which is a hot market, and put something together with real estate people who are negotiating every day. Tactical empathy is something you've mentioned. Is that the same thing? We talked about a couple different empathies earlier. Is tactical empathy the forced empathy? Is that the same thing, or is that something different?
Forced empathy is a subset of tactical empathy. Tactical empathy is a broader term that because we know so much more about how the brain works, let's take what we know and actually apply it and use it in a tactical fashion.
Okay. All right. So now let's take people up to this point. And have you ever lost your composure in a negotiation? That's one thing I've been dying to ask you. When you were in a tight spot, have you just completely lost your cool, lost your emotion, something triggered you, and man, you just became too emotional?
I've gotten overly negative in a couple of business negotiations with someone that, if I'm talking to somebody that I'm trying to have a great relationship with, and if they interrupt me, they lie to me, they don't listen to me, all those bad habits. Mm-hmm. I can let my anger get out of control occasionally, and I'll say, look, I'm done. I'm off the phone, and then I'll hang up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it happens to the best in the world, right? I mean, we're I guess emotional creatures. I mean, that's why a lot of this works, because you talk about the animal side of the brain, the logical side of the brain in the book, and that animal side wants something, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
And it's going after. And if you know that want, then you have an advantage. And you talked about in the Lewis Howes interview how if Trump was on the front, if President Trump now was on the front, you gave him the front page of the from any magazine, he would give you basically whatever he wanted because he wanted that affirmation. He wanted to be positioned as number one.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the folks out there listening, a lot of people like this. Never Split the Difference is the book. Obviously, you've got a company now that does you come in and teach companies how to negotiate better. Is that through one-day workshops? Is it through ongoing coaching? Explain your business model so people out there who may want to purchase your services and bring you in to work with their companies can do that.
Well, we'll figure out a way to work with you, whether you're an individual or company. And we've got some stuff that we give away for free. We've got different training products at different prices. Really, the best way overall is to subscribe to our newsletter.
Okay.
Subscribe to the newsletter. It's complimentary. It's called The Edge. It comes out once a week. There's an article that'll make you better in each and every each and every week, and they're short articles. This is not like reading the encyclopedia. This is short stuff. Tells you about what training we got coming up. It's the gateway to everything we do. Easiest way to sign up for the Edge is to send a text to the number 22828, and it's 22828. And you got to send the words "That's right." And don't let your spell check screw it up for you, because it's got to be all one word with no apostrophe. Your spell check's going to try to put an apostrophe in there, try to put a space in there. THATSRIGHT. One word, no apostrophe. You'll get a message back. It'll sign you up for the Edge, and you'll be on your way. We'll find a way to help you do some cool stuff and have fun with negotiation.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, being better at this is going to drive your revenue up. It's going to make you a lot more money, in my opinion. The better the negotiation. Every day we're negotiating, and this guy is really the best in the world. FBI lead hostage negotiator for how many years, Chris?
I was in the lead for 7 years.
Nice. Man, what a fascinating life that you've lived. Thank you for sharing your information with people now as an instructor. The book is Never Split the Difference, must have for every person out there, and really learn more about this. Chris does workshops, one-day workshops. I'm trying to find a date as he rolls these out in other cities. And anybody that wants to go with me, I'd love to go just get really, really coached and trained by this guy, because, man, when you get trained by the best in the world, it just helps you. So, Chris, thank you for joining me on Super Coach. I appreciate you, big guy, and keep up the good work. You're going to help a lot of people on planet Earth, and it really means a lot that you spend an hour with me.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Okay, thank you.